welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been 2 years since I last posted, but that's okay. I'm back and I'm gonna be doing a new series called Espooky Estories, where I'm gonna invite different friends on and they're gonna tell me their personally Espooky stories. Now, what's gonna make this different is that it's gonna be stories from their rancho, right? Because we already know La Llorona and Chupacabra stories. It's gonna be like things that happen to them or their family members. So we all get to find out new stories and we can share new stories at the next family gathering. With me today, I have one of my close friends. We've known each other for 10 years now.
Yeah.
We used to be roommates and we're each other's backup plan. We're actually each other's backup plan. So we can get tax cuts if none of us get married by the time we're 50.
Hey everyone, my name is Blanco Bean, and I'm excited to be able to share my stories when it comes to my family and my rancho. Jackie forced me to do this, so we'll see how this goes.
I did. He had originally agreed, and then he wanted to back out, and then I was like, no!
Okay.
You said you were going to be the first person on, and we have to do this. And so here we are. And to make it a little bit more natural for us, we decided to have some snacks with us so that, like, you know, we're listening. Those are my dogs, if you can hear them. They're running around in the background. They might make a surprise appearance. So we can be listening and munching on things. Oh, so we have pepino because I had pepino in my fridge. It was going to go bad and we have to eat it. And, of course, we have to have hot Cheetos and hot potato chips. We have the limon, the chamoy, the Valentina. Actually made us a mocktail. Tell me what it is.
It's like, it has like lime soda with some orange. Of course, you cut up some oranges. I saw it on TikTok. I was just like, this is pretty simple, easy. It literally tastes as if like there was alcohol in here, but trust, there's none. And then under here, like the red is like the like granada or whatever, like syrup stuff. But that's what makes it really nice. It looks, it's called like a sunshine something kind of drink.
Bartender.
Yeah. It's nice.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It does taste like there was alcohol in here. We get like the placebo effect. We start acting drunk as we're telling stories. So who's gonna go first? You wanna go first?
Yeah, I mean, I can start off.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, so one of the things when it comes to my family is that like my mom will be the one who will mostly have like a lot like the scary stories, but for some reason like she never tells me scary stories. We're in like in the United States here, but whenever we go and visit, like that's when like I don't know, something triggers where like things just start coming out. And so like I was asking my mom,
she's like, how am I gonna traumatize you?
Right? Literally.
Let me traumatize you and tell you what happened to me in this room that you're gonna sleep in here
Oh my god. So technically I have two from one that happened and then one that she will tell me.
Okay.
But yeah, this one was like when I was like young and we would go and visit Mexico in our rancho. My family's from Jalisco, by the way. And so while we were there, like there's like this on my grandpa's side, he lives like uphill. While like down, you go down and then there's like a little like brick area section in that part. So back in the day, when my mom was like very young, I think even before when she was brought to this world.
Like in her prime? No. Oh.
No, like
a baby.
Like a baby.
Okay, like a fetus.
Anyway, so like I was saying, like there's like this brick area, and actually before there used to be a pond in that section. So at the pond, it wasn't too big. You could think of it as like maybe like 3 cars put together side by side, and so it's not that big. But the thing was, it was deep. So that was one of the things when it came to that pond specifically, it was a deep one. And like I said, my grandpa lives uphill, and so like it was down there in that corner section. And so when it was their time, people would like go out and whatnot and just like walk around. You know, sometimes they'll go to like the downtown area where like the kiosco is. In the church and everything like that. And they would have like their little fiestas and whatnot. And so it wasn't abnormal when kids will go outside to play together and stuff. And so one of the things that they would do is that they would go to like the pond area. And so they would like play in the pond. But the thing is that some of the kids didn't know how to swim. A lot of them would like drown in that pond. And so like a lot of the parents were like, oh, like advocated in their town, like we need to do something about this. But the funny thing is like not training the kids how to swim. I don't know, but the thing that they decided to do is to actually cover the pond. And so it's like this like little area, like I said, it's like this small area and it's all bricks. There's no like nothing use for it. It's just like places that people will sit down and whatnot. But one of the things that my mom would say is that people in the town would hear, like, when they were walking by that road, they would hear, like, sometimes, like, the noise of children playing around and stuff. But the thing is that they would also hear, like, as if, like, gargling, like,
no, ew.
in the area.
That's so
and
scary.
So, yeah, it's a really sad one.
Like
it's
at
just,
night?
Like,
or
at
like
night when people, like,
oh,
literally, when they're walking down. Because, like I said, people will go out at night and walk around the place and stuff. But, like, yeah, when you go in that area...
Imagine your mom sends you, they're like, go to your tia's house, I forgot.
Yeah, right.
I forgot the queso.
So I hear that, it's like, what the heck?
No, running. No.
But, yeah, that was something that would happen there. So that one was pretty, yeah. That was the one that I remember the most with that one. I never experienced it, even though I've been, like, walking down there with my cousins plenty of times. Mm-hmm. But I've never experienced that, so... But, you know, that's other people's experiences for sure.
Oh my god. Mm-hmm. That was a good one.
Oh, thank you.
Scary.
Oh.
Okay, so now I'll tell you about mine. So this is like a story that everybody from my mom's rancho knows. And then afterwards I'll tell you a personal one. Mm-hmm. But this is the one that scared me so much as a kid. Like, I didn't want to go to rivers because, you know, do you know duendes? You know about duendes?
I've heard of them.
My mom has so many stories about duendes, and she traumatized all of us with duendes. At one point, she taught us that, like, if we were driving near water at any point, and, like, one of my sisters was a baby, we had to yell out their name because the duendes would take their spirit away. Their soul away.
Oh, shit.
So, like, as we were driving by, we were in the car and we all had to yell out, like, Giselle, come back to us, Giselle. Like, we just had to scream out her name. And then once we were gone from the water, she'd be like, all right, everybody did a good job. Giselle's soul is still with her. We're chilling. Can you imagine?
That's scary.
Could you imagine?
Someone saying that?
My mom. So my mom is from Nayarit, Mexico, specifically La Yesca. And she was saying that, you know, back then, there was like no electricity, people couldn't afford lavadora, so when they needed to do laundry, they would go down to El Arroyo. And as we know, men would go to work and the women's job was to take care of the house and the kids. So there was this lady, it was her first baby, and she was having like a hard time separating herself from the baby. So she liked to take her baby because she didn't have, like, I think her mom had passed away, so she didn't have somebody who could help her watch the baby while she did like the house chores, and she needed to do laundry. So she decided to take her baby with her to go to El Rio and do laundry. And so she set her baby down like on top of some rocks, like in an area where she could see and hear the baby. And this was a baby like a couple months old, so the baby wasn't moving around or anything. It was a young baby. But her baby was asleep. And so she went down to the river, she took her clothes, and she was washing. And she said that she could hear kids playing around her. And so she just assumed it was like, you know, the neighborhood kids playing around there. And she heard a lot of giggling. And then her baby started crying. But she was like, she just really wanted to get done as soon as possible so she can get back home. And she heard her baby crying, and she was just kind of like, it's okay, like, ahorita voy, don't worry, ya me acabo. She's just like talking to the baby from down at the river base. And she hears the baby crying, and then it starts sounding muffled. And she's just like, oh, like, maybe like his face got covered with the blanket or something. But she's like, it's okay, like, I'm almost done, I'm gonna wait out. And then there was silence. So she's like, oh, okay, the baby fell asleep. So she wasn't in a hurry anymore. She was just chilling. She finished doing her stuff. She, like, you know, what is this motion I'm doing?
Like wringing?
Yeah, she was like wringing her clothes, put it all in the basket, and like put it on her and went back up. And when she went to look at her baby, she saw that her baby had worms shoved up its nose.
Oh.
And dirt and worms shoved in the baby's mouth.
Oh my gosh.
And so like that like muffled sound she was hearing was because there was things in the baby's mouth and the baby was suffocating.
Oh my gosh.
And so obviously she freaked out, panicked, looked around, and she was looking for the kids. And again, this was like a small rancho, so there's probably like 5 or 6 houses.
Yeah.
Right? And so she, in her grief, she goes and she like wants to fight people. She's like, your kids did this to my baby. And all of the people there are like, oh, like my kids were asleep. Or my kids are at the fields with their dad. So there was like no kids around. So then what they think happened is that the duendes killed, like the whole belief that my mom has is the duendes killed the baby so the spirit would stay with them.
Oh my god.
Because in my mom's town, they believe that, like, my mom doesn't believe this, but they believe that the duendes are the spirits of children, of unbaptized children. Which is like such a Catholic thing, like, whatever. But she's like, yeah, that's what people thought. But, like, my mom does believe that the duendes did it, and she doesn't think they're unbaptized children.
Wow.
But she,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they'll say.
Yeah, and I don't know when this happened, but it's like a story in my mom's town that everybody knows.
Dang. That's so sad.
I know. Like, when she first told me, like, I gagged, you know, because like the thought of like worms shoved in your nostrils and like dirt in his mouth. Oh, the poor baby.
Right? That reminds me of like the duendes that we usually post those like videos on like Facebook back in the day. I would like literally look at Facebook and also on YouTube looking at duende videos of like people capturing them live. Yeah.
But like based on, I would watch those all the time too. But based on like the stories that my mom has said, she's like, those aren't duendes. Duendes literally are children. They're children. They're not like little things. It's children.
That kind of reminds me of like the Children of the Corn.
Ah!
Oh my gosh. You know what I noticed between the stories? The next one that I had in mind to share also has to do with children. So I don't know why there's this pattern of like children in horror stories.
Because children are innocent, right? So it's scary.
It's like what? Like
when they're not and they're evil. The devil.
I think it's also because like they will tell like the parents will tell the kids these kind of stories so that they behave and stuff. Like, don't go outside, don't do this, don't do that.
The Catholic guilt, the Catholic fear. Instead of just like, you know, giving you a lesson, they're just like, the devil's gonna take you away. Exactly.
They're gonna take you away. Actually, have you ever heard of like a clock that can predict your death?
No.
So basically, this story, it comes from like Jalisco. And it's specifically in Guadalajara, which is like 2 hours away from like the little town that I'm from. And so this one has to do with a hospice that's called Hospice Cabaña. Like today, it's now like a museum, that place, or like they put like paintings and famous paintings and stuff. But during that time, this was like during like the 19th century, so a little bit before the Mexican independence. During that time, the hospice, the founder was a bishop. And the bishop, what he would do is he will go at like nights and try to see if he can find any like homeless children, orphans, any homeless people, and will welcome them back to like the hospice, because yeah, just to have a place. So he was like helping the community and everything. But then all of a sudden, this one night while he was like outside walking, he like literally meets up with a monk. And the monk comes, like, tells him, you are a great person. You do so many nice things to people. But says later that he, like, points to the hospice area and says that hospice is going to be destroyed. There's going to be a war. And then there's going to be also a lot of destruction. But the only way that...
So it's obviously the monk wasn't real and it's a spirit.
What was it?
It's a spirit.
Well, sort of. So basically... the only way that all of this can be stopped is if the bishop will bow down. But the bishop started noticed that who he was talking to wasn't a monk. It was actually the devil. And so the only reason why he was forcing him, of course, like to bow down was to be able to like just, of course, like a Catholic priest or a bishop bowing down to the devil. I don't know what you would do if that was the case in you, but I don't know. Like, it sounds to me if there was no war, there was no anything.
Yeah,
but
why
at the same
not?
time, no,
It's
yeah,
just a
you're
pride.
right. Right.
If I can prevent a war from happening.
But I also think about like the war that happened, which was the war that happened next was Mexico's independence. So everything that apparently the devil said came true.
So the devil was a white man?
maybe. But
okay.
So everything happened. So basically, the hospice now turns into a prison, and it's taken over. And I believe also like the bishop died. So like during this time, so he witnessed everything.
So like the devil just walked away.
Yeah, because he didn't bow. Like he didn't bow down to him, and so the devil said, "I'm going to do all this if you don't bow down." So because he didn't do it, everything was going to happen.
Okay.
And so like everything happened. The war happened. There was destruction everywhere, and now the hospice wasn't destroyed, but of course it lost its prison. It's now a prison. It like lost its purpose.
A little like hell on earth that we create. Right. Yeah.
And so now, but the only thing I think it was like I mentioned like it was 18 years it was of that, but then it returned back to the origins where now nuns lived in that place. And so when it came to the story of the clock, that place was the first clock.
Oh right, I forgot
about the clock.
Wow, bringing it all back.
All the way around.
Like a clock.
And then there's a clock.
And then there's a clock. Okay, let's talk about the clock.
But there was a clock, and this was the first clock in Guadalajara. And I know it might not sound like whoa, because we now have so many things. It was important back in the day. So during that time, they finally built a clock.
Okay.
So again, like I mentioned, that now it got its purpose came back, which was orphanage and having nuns. The church would take care of the kids. But this clock, when it was put up, they started noticing things where when the clock stopped, all of a sudden they will notice that an orphan passed away.
No, I don't like that.
And like the clock would it would just do it abruptly. Like it didn't have any like signal or anything of what was happening.
Orphans would die of natural causes, or
I don't know. I don't know what. It just says that every single time that clock will stop, all of a sudden a child would die, and it was like that kind of like scary because it's like it's predicting. Oh my gosh, someone's going to die in the next hour, whatever.
Oh no!
But yeah, and then they finally decided in 1954 or something like that, like years later, to finally take it down. And so what they did is they blessed the clock, and then they
What kind of a clock was it? Was it like a...
It was like a giant, they said it was like a giant clock in the middle, like the center.
Like on top of a tower?
Yeah, like on top of their building and stuff. So it was like a giant
It wasn't just like a wall clock?
No, like a little, with a battery in the back. No. But that's what I think. That's how it was. That's how I use my imagination.
Okay.
But so it wasn't. So they blessed it and then destroyed it because they didn't know what was happening with that clock.
And so after children stopped dying,
I guess so.
Did it work?
There wasn't they didn't continue with the details.
Okay.
Again, but it's like I'm trying to think about the story behind it, because it's like it went from the story was with the devil, and then the bishop, and then all of a sudden this clock appears and stuff. So I'm imagining it's something that the devil predicted as well.
Yeah, the devil stayed in the clock.
Yeah. I don't know. But that apparently is... I might even be butchering the story a little bit, but that's what I read.
What was it called again?
It's like El Reloj de la Muerte.
So they're like, you need to know the lore of how El Reloj de la Muerte started. And it was because a priest wouldn't bow to the devil.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a museum now, so I'm wondering if they have more stories if you visit and stuff over there. So
if we make it big, we can go and visit. That's a good one.
Yeah,
it was had everything: the devil, the Catholic Church,
spirits,
orphans,
death, children,
orphan children,
orphan children. But it's what was the purpose of that?
to scare children from clocks. You don't need to know time.
Right? Don't read from it. There's no purpose.
Okay, so my last story, I was actually talking to my mom about it yesterday. Because I was like, Mom, do you remember how you traumatized me with this story? And she was cracking up. Like, she couldn't breathe. She was laughing so hard. She's like, I totally forgot about that story.
That's hilarious.
Like, yeah, it had a severe impact on my well-being as a child and on the way that I sleep to this day. So this was back, we lived in a small town in Nayarit for a while. And somebody had died recently. And my mom didn't want me to go, like, you know, when they were burying somebody at the cemetery, but like once he was buried and like the tomb was up, like we went to like go pay our respects. And like we were there a really long time because they were doing the Rosario. And I was a child, probably like a second grader. I got bored. And so I started wandering around the cemetery. This was during the day. Obviously, at night, I would not have been wandering around the cemetery.
What are you doing
It was
there?
like sunny. It was nice and sunny. And I'm wandering around the cemetery, and I see that there's like a grave, like a baby's grave. Like I read it, it's like a small baby, probably like 6 months old at past. And there's no flowers. There's like nothing. It's bare. And I, a second grader, feels really sad about that. And so I'm looking around. It's awful. I know I should have done it. It's awful. I'm looking around and I see that there's another grave with so many flowers. So I just take some and I go and I put it on the baby's grave.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's awful. It's awful. I was a child, okay? My mom, from way the other side, she peeped it. She saw me do it. But she wasn't going to call me out in front of everybody because that's embarrassing, right? And she also noticed that nobody else saw. And instead of, at that moment, coming over and telling me to put it back, she did it. So we go home. I'm like, I did something so good today. Did such a good deed. And I'm like, you know, we're getting ready to go to bed. Of course, she told me right before we could go to bed. And she was like, so what were you doing when you wandered off? And me, proud of what I did, I told her, I was like, oh, I saw a grave of a baby and it didn't have any flowers. So I put some flowers there. And she was like, where'd you get the flowers? And I was like, from another grave. And she was just like, And instead of, you know, scolding me, she did the traditional Catholic thing of telling me a scary story so that I wouldn't do it again. And she was like, well, back in the day, a man was visiting his friend's grave.
Oh my gosh.
And this man was really poor. He had no money, but he wanted to go and pay respects to his dear friend. And when he got there, his friend had no flowers. And he looked and they were burying a rich man. And that rich man had so many fancy bougie like flower bouquets and everything. And the friend was just like, this isn't fair. Even in death, poverty prevents you from having a pretty tomb. So he waited until like all of those people left. And he went and he took like a bouquet from the rich man and put it on his friend. He went home, went to sleep. My mom said, that then when he was sleeping, he could feel somebody grabbing his ankles.
Oh.
But he couldn't wake up. But he could feel that someone was grabbing both of his ankles and kind of like tugging at him.
Sounds like sleep paralysis.
Yeah, right? Again, I'm a child, second grader. How old are you in second grade? 7? Yeah, 7.
Around that.
Yeah. And so he was just like, whatever. Didn't pay it any mind. Kept slipping. This happened for a week straight. He could feel someone tugging at his legs, but he couldn't wake up. And it was just like, all right, whatever. On the 7th day, of course, on the 7th
Specifically.
day, yeah, he is sleeping. And not only does he feel his leg, somebody tugging his legs, he feels dirt on his back. And so he does wake up for a second and he sees that somebody is dragging him through the dirt by his legs, but he can't scream and he can't move. He's just seeing it.
Oh my gosh.
And then he falls asleep again. Like he passes out.
Mm-hmm.
And when he finally wakes up, he's in the cemetery next to the grave of the man where he stole the flowers from.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm a little kid, and I'm like,
that's terrible.
mouth wide open. And my mom turns and she's like, El alma del señor, the soul of the man, was so upset that man stole his flowers. He went and he dragged him all the way to his house, to the cemetery, so he could put the flowers back that he stole.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom's just like, and I'm not saying that that's gonna happen to you, but you better hope that we go back to the cemetery soon. So you can put the flowers back.
That's terrible.
And this is right before going to bed. I was like, you know, I wanted to pee myself. I was so scared. I was terrified. And my mom probably just did like a little smirk. She went to bed. And so that night, I couldn't fall asleep, obviously, because I was like, somebody's going to drag my feet. And so from that moment on, I slept in a fetal position with like my legs up because I didn't want the soul of whoever stole the flowers from to drag me all the way back to the cemetery at night.
I bet your mom came in to see what position you were in.
Probably.
Look at her, she's hiding her feet.
Look at her, what a loser. She's scared. And I still, I remember when I first started doing that, it was so uncomfortable. I could not sleep. My feet would go numb because I wasn't used to sleeping that way. But now, I legitimately can't sleep with my legs just out. It's not comfortable to me. I have to sleep in a fetal position. And so when I was telling her yesterday, she died. She was like, that's so iconic of me that I did that.
She just came with it on the spot?
She's like, but what you did was wrong, was it not? And I'm like, yes, but you could have told me something else. You know, not traumatize me. That a ghost was gonna drag me out of bed by my ankles and drag me all the way to the cemetery. What is wrong with you?
Sounds like a pro-capitalist story. Don't take away from this.
Pro-capitalist and a Catholic story.
Right.
And that is the reason why I sleep in a fetal position today. But I learned my lesson. I never did that again. And I did beg my dad to take me back to the cemetery. Bye. I was like, Dad, it's gonna be the 7th day soon.
Take me.
I think all of our stories are just perfect examples of how Catholicism influenced our communities to teach each other lessons with the devil and scary spirits instead of just straight up, hey, that was wrong, you shouldn't do that.
Right?
No, let me traumatize you and telling you a really horrible, scary story to scare you straight. The Catholic Church started Scared Straight.
Using fear on kids.
It worked.
It
worked. But look at us now. Therapy.
Right.
Therapy talking about
depression, anxiety.
I wonder why we're so mentally ill. That's why. If you have similar stories that you want to share with us so we can discuss them out loud, I'll include the email that you can send us your story in the caption below. I really want to hear personal stories, of scary stories that your parents have told you that traumatize you, just the reason why I sleep in the fetal position now, or urban legends that you've heard from your hometowns. I want to know the nitty gritty. What do your parents tell you? At the carne asada late at night, those scary stories. That's what I want to hear from you. And I want to thank you, Blanco, for being here with me today and doing the first episode of Espooky Estories with me. I'll include his social media in the description below if you want to follow him. If you want to follow me, all of my social media links are the same, and I'll include those too. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.